Because of the opposition that the exiles faced in returning to Jerusalem to rebuild the altar, the temple, and the walls of Jerusalem, uh, there was a period in which the work wasn't getting done. And then under Darius the first, and he reigned from 521 to 485 BC, a new effort led by Zerubbabel and Jeshua also encountered opposition, but with encouragement from the prophets Haggai and Zechariah, they went to work on the temple. And this is the passage that I preached about on Sunday in Ezra chapter 3, verses 12 to 13, just in case you didn't hear the sermon on Sunday. But many of the priests and Levites and heads of families, old people who had seen the first house on its foundations, wept with a loud voice when they saw this house, though many shouted for joy, so that the people could not distinguish the sound of the joyful shout from the sound of the people's weeping. For the people shouted so loudly that the sound was heard far away. Can you put yourself in that place? When was the last time you heard hundreds or thousands of people shouting very loudly? I can tell you personally, it was just a few days ago for me when I was with about 37,000 people who were cheering very loudly at Fenway Park. It's moving when you have thousands of people shouting, and I just find this passage, these verses, very poignant because you have the two distinct feelings being expressed. The oldest people who are part of the community who could remember Solomon's temple and all of its grandeur and glory and beauty, and now looking at the second temple, which was much smaller and less glorious, with less gold and silver and all those sorts of precious things that had been a part of Solomon's temple. And they look at what they have now, and it's kind of like, this is all there is, and they're heartbroken. But meanwhile, the younger people who had been born in Babylon, who had only heard stories about living in Judah and living in Jerusalem, they're so excited about, now we're back in our native land, and we're going to be a community again and a nation again, and we're going to have our city and our temple. They're all excited because they don't remember. They hadn't seen what had come before. And isn't this part of the dilemma of life, right? We need to keep looking forward. We need to keep living into the future. We can't just look back and always think, oh, everything was better in former days, because we can't live in those former days. We can only live in the present. And so for all of us, that brings up the task of, what can I do today? How can I, like those returned exiles in Jerusalem, how can I do my part to rebuild the house of the Lord, to strengthen community in these days in which we're living?